Within the lecture, we'll have an overview about teachers' roles in promoting sustainability, and also we will try to examine how the sustainability compass can be used in educational system developing curricula. So when we're speaking about the competencies, implementing sustainable development principles through education in a holistic way, required competencies that it's needed for the teachers. And those competencies must be identified by the organizations, or they have to make self-evaluation which competencies are required and which competencies are missing there, and then try to incorporate those competencies, give a chance to enhance the teachers via teachers training and also composing different educational resources for them to develop those real competencies that is needed for the sustainability. And also when we're speaking about the different models, there are many methods and strategies available to educators, and those strategies could be used also to promote sustainability within the education. So when we're speaking about the education for sustainability, it calls to rethink whole educational system, and that means that we have to transform our educational system, and this transformation could be started from the competencies of the teachers that should be enhanced. So we have a definition, mostly cited definition of the sustainable development from Brundtland, and it said that sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. What does that mean? That means that we have to think about future, and education is that we have to teach today with tomorrow on mind. So there are different ways to create an environmentally robust, socially equitable, and economically fair world. And in this case, we need a good legislation, first of all, because a lot of countries really depend on the legislation, because in those countries, top-down processes are taking place mostly. And also we are speaking about the good governance and overcoming the corruption, because the corruption is taking away financial resources that should be available for different systems like economy, education. So for the development of the country, we need to overcome this kind of management in the country. Also, our economic and educational incentives should go in a direction to change, for example, business as usual to a socially and environmentally responsible business. And so environmental responsibility should not be only for environmentalists, it should also go beyond that area, and also all the participants, all the citizens should be responsible for caring about their environment. Our knowledge is gained on traditionally gained experience during the centuries. It doesn't address modern global challenges. In today's world, we eyewitness how the economic growth models has led to environmental degradation, social injustice, and economic inequities. Unfortunately, many educational systems supported such kind of development. When we're speaking about the education, it's one of the mechanisms available to the government to make a social transformation within the system, and it should be done in different ways. Firstly, initial teacher training should be addressed. We want future teachers to have those competencies that will not support such an unsustainable models and lifestyles into the system. So the programs should be very comprehensive, and they should address sustainable development principles. So educational institutions, universities should have a close look to an educational programs, and they should incorporate those principles wherever it's possible. And also when we're speaking about the continuous professional development, it's also important to have a look at the trainings that are available within the countries, and also empower teachers, trainers, and those institutions to carry out and to convey not only the information, but also the skills and values which are necessary to develop sustainable development principles, and to have also those principles embedded into whole school environment. So I think that it's not only important to run such type of trainings and workshops and different lectures, but also it's important to have more resources available for the teachers in their own languages, because there is a barrier and limitation for the teachers in most of the countries that they have without the knowledge of the foreign languages, they can't have an access to those resources that are available nowadays online. So now we will speak about the competencies of educators. This document was developed by the UNECE, and it is speaking about the competencies that are required for the educators. And those competencies are important, and we're having three main pillars in this area. And first is holistic approach that include interrelated components that you can see on the screen. Firstly, it's an integrative thinking, another is inclusivity and dealing with the complexities. Another pillar of this approach of the competencies is envisioning changes that cover competencies regarding to learning from the past, that is very important, also inspiring engagement in the present and exploring alternative futures. This one is very important because we have to think what should be the consequences of our actions, and because of that we have to have that future thinking which will be within the competencies of the teachers. And third area of the competencies is achieving transformation, that covers competencies that are operating on three levels. Firstly, it's a transformation of what it means to be an educator, so self-transformation. We're speaking about that, how to change, how to be more confident, how to know how to convey this information. So firstly, we have to change our mindset and our thoughts. And secondly, we have to transform our pedagogy practice. That means that teaching and learning should have more such type of strategies and methods that could convey those competencies that are very necessary for the future students that will be afterward on the global world market, job market. And the third in transformation of the whole educational system. So I think that more about these competencies you could find in the document of UNECE about the competencies of education for sustainable development. So without applying those competencies to educators, we will face the most dangerous maybe crisis in the world. We are speaking about the competencies that are lacking and skills that are lack our future generation, children and youth. According to World Bank and World Economic Forum, we are having more than 1.6 billion children in today's world, and this number is rising because there is a population growth, especially in less economically developed countries, and by 2030 there will be more than half of those youth and kids who are lacking the skills, and that means that technology will develop, they will replace future jobs for them, and if the new jobs that require different kind of skills and competencies from the youth, like more, higher order thinking skills, that means that the economy will stand and it will not develop further. And also a lot of people will be not in place in the global job market. So I think that unless the education system could respond to that problem, we will face upcoming crisis in the economy, which will be really most dangerous in the world. So the competencies that teachers should develop through education can't be done with a teacher-centered approach, and those traditional approach could be shifted to a student-centered approach, and that means that new interactive methods like the classroom discussions, integrative learning, or case studies or discussions, and modeling and problem-based education should take place within the educational system. And if we want to achieve by 2030 17 Sustainable Development Goals, that means that we have to develop 21st century competencies in the students. And so that means that we have to develop personal competencies, collaboration competencies. Also, we have to think about problem solving competencies, and future thinking, system thinking, creative thinking or critical thinking should be applied to the educational system. Without that, we're facing a global crisis in the future. So we have to rethink educational system as a whole. We have to think about empowering educators, and also the education system should be supported and well financed.